So this video is going to be about Brian Flores' lawsuit against the NFL for racial discrimination. My name is Nate the Lawyer. If you are new here, we talk about the law and the facts. If you're about that life, don't forget to like this video, share this video, and subscribe to the channel. So who is Brian Flores? Brian Flores is the former coach of the Miami Dolphins.
Worth right there, coaching him up. Let's talk coaching. One coaching surprise of the week was Brian Flores getting fired by the Dolphins after 3 seasons. He led Miami to a winning record in each of the last 2 years and finished the season 8-1 over the last 9 games. That's tied for the best record in the league since week 9. And he got it done against the Patriots, going 4-2 against New England. Let's bring in Morton Adams for more on Brian Flores, guys.
Okay, so just so we're clear, I read through the lawsuit. And this lawsuit is, I'm calling it U.S. Women's National Team Soccer Part 2, right? Or Colin Kaepernick 2.0. This was a well-written lawsuit. But this lawsuit it's laughable, to be honest with you. Nowhere in this lawsuit are there real claims of discrimination based on race, right? What you have here is someone who doesn't know what the reason is for them not getting a job, right? And doesn't know the reason why an interview went poorly, and just immediately says it is about race. And then on top of that, then makes explosive allegations for public consumption, right? So we can all look at a lawsuit and be like, oh my God, look at, they were paid to lose games and so forth and so forth. So the kitchen sink approach with putting a lawsuit out there like that, promoting it very hard, and getting us, both in the media and at home, to feel sorry and say, oh my God, this is discrimination, when there's really no evidence put forward by Brian Flores' team to show that this was real discrimination. And we'll go over it. But that's just my, for those of you who are going to click off now and just like, I don't want to hear anymore. I just wanted to give you guys a quick synopsis of what I believe this lawsuit is not. And it's not one that I think can win a discrimination claim. So to illustrate my point about how this lawsuit lacks claims of discrimination, let's look at first his claims that the New York Giants discriminated against him based on race. Check it out.
This was a text exchange you had with Bill Belichick, whom you worked with for years at the New England Patriots. Coach Belichick writes you, "Sounds like you've landed. Congrats." You write back, "Did you hear something I didn't hear?" Belichick writes, "Giants?" ? You write back, "I interview on Thursday. I think I have a shot at it." Belichick writes, "Got it. I hear from Buffalo and the Giants that you are their guy. Hope it works out if you want to." Then you write, "Coach, are you talking to Brian Flores or Brian Daboll? Just making sure." Then Belichick writes, "Sorry, I effed this up. I double checked and I misread the text. I think they're naming Daboll. I'm sorry about that. Bill Belichick." So Belichick is telling you, days before you're even interviewing for the Giants job, that he thinks Daboll's got it locked up.
Yes, and that's what we're trying to change.
What did that feel like?
It was humiliating, to be quite honest. There was disbelief, there was anger, there was a wave of emotions for a lot of reasons.
Belichick tells you the job's going to Daboll, a white coach. So you think at this point, what, the only reason the Giants are interviewing me is because they have to?
Yeah, the Rooney Rule. That's the first thing that came to my mind. But my other emotions were, why aren't I getting a real opportunity here?
So in terms of the Giants, he's saying the Giants interview is a sham, and they were only interviewing him to fulfill the Rooney Rule. Now, the Rooney Rule is a rule that the NFL has that says that you have to interview at least one minority candidate for head coaching positions and GM positions and so forth. You don't have to hire them, but you have to at least interview them. And if you don't interview them, you can have like a $200,000 fine for not interviewing minority candidates. So that's what when they refer to the Rooney Rule. I can't speak. When they refer to the Rooney Rule, that's what they're talking about. So just so we're clear, he's saying that he got a text message from Bill Belichick that, hey, congratulations, looked like you've landed a job. He's like, what are you talking about? I haven't even interviewed yet. They're like, oh, you're right. You haven't. I'm talking to, this text message was meant for somebody else. And he believes that that is proof of racial discrimination, right? They discriminate him based on race, right? And the only reason why they're even bringing him in for an interview is because of race. So two things I want you to pay attention to. The timeline of events, right? And understand that you've only heard one side of the story. So now let's listen to the Giants respond directly to those
commentary. A lengthy statement from the Giants, which says, among other things, the allegation that the Giants' decision had been made to hire Brian Daboll prior to Friday evening, January 28, is false. And to base that allegation on a text exchange with Bill Belichick, in which he ultimately states that he thinks Brian Daboll would get the job, is irresponsible. The text exchange occurred the day before Coach Daboll's in-person interview even took place. Giants ownership would never hire a head coach based on only a 20-minute Zoom interview, which is all that Mr. Daboll had at that point. In addition, Mr. Belichick does not speak for and has no affiliation with the Giants. Mr. Belichick's text exchange provides no insight into what actually transpired during our head coaching search. That's just some of what the Giants had to say. They called the allegations made by Brian Flores disturbing and simply false.
All right, so just so we can all put into perspective what we've just heard, Brian Flores was alleging that, hey, my interview was a sham because you already hired this guy before my interview, right? And these text messages prove that it was a sham. But the Giants respond by saying, well, hold on, those text messages prove nothing because the guy says, I think you're the guy. And number two, we didn't even interview the guy until after that text exchange. That text exchange was on a Monday. We didn't interview the guy until Tuesday. So how can we hire somebody we hadn't even interviewed yet? So now it just comes down, who do you believe? Do you believe the Giants or do you believe Flores? So now let's look at the claims against the Denver Broncos, who Brian Flores says he had a poor interview with.
You state that in an interview that you had with them, that John Elway and another Broncos official showed up an hour late, looked disheveled. It was obvious to you they had been drinking heavily the night before the interview. You say it became clear they only were interviewing you to fulfill the provisions of the Rooney Rule. What specifically can you remember about that interview?
So I've had 9 interviews with NFL clubs. There's been one interview where anyone was late. And it wasn't me that was late, it was the interviewers who were late. That was with the Broncos. I think there was a reason why they were late. I think they were, they'd been out the night before. I think that's the reason why.
What made you believe that? I don't mean to interrupt you, but what gave you the impression, if you will, that they had been out drinking the night before?
Well, I mean, when you sit at a table with 5 people who are interviewing you, you know you can tell who's asking questions, who's into the interview, and who's not necessarily in the right state, I would say, in that moment. But even then, obviously, I put my best foot forward and showed why I was a good candidate for that job. I'm always going to do that. But I certainly did not feel like I was taken seriously, and that I was just there as a Rooney Rule.
Vic Fangio ultimately was hired for that job and was subsequently fired a month ago.
So Brian Flores is alleging that they were just interviewing him because he was black, right? And that was it. And they didn't take the interview seriously, and that's the reason. The sole reason why his interview went poorly was because he was black and they had to interview him. But here is what the Denver Broncos had to say.
He's no longer technically, I don't want to say an employee, but he doesn't have a title. He's an advisor now with the Denver Broncos. He is in the process of easing out of the organization. He's helping GM George Payton, but he was the GM back in 2019 when they hired Vic Fangio. And there's Elway's statement: while I was not planning to respond publicly to the false and defamatory claims about Brian Flores, I cannot be silent any longer. With my character, integrity, and professionalism being attacked, I took Coach Flores very seriously as a candidate for a head coaching position in 2019 and enjoyed our 3.5-hour interview with him. Along with the rest of our group, I was prepared, ready, and fully engaged during the entire interview for Brian to make an assumption about my appearance and state of mind that morning was subjective, hurtful, and just plain wrong. I interviewed Brian in good faith, giving him the same consideration and opportunity as every other candidate for a head coaching position in 2019. Elway separately said in that statement that they had flown in overnight after interviewing a candidate in Denver because, see, at the time, Flores working for the Patriots in the playoff chase that resulted in the Super Bowl 53 championship, they had to go to him. So if he was disheveled, and that was Flores' conclusion, that they were hungover, that the Broncos contingent was hungover. And Elway said, if we looked disheveled, it was because we were on a plane all night and didn't sleep, basically. So the battle has been joined. Now, when he says false and defamatory, Miles, makes me think he's thinking about pursuing his options as well.
So now I hope you see where I'm going with this, right? It's not enough to just allege that I had a bad interview. It was because I was black, right? Or they hired someone else and they didn't hire me because I was black, or this interview was a sham because I was black. You need more to this, right? And I don't see the discriminatory tactic in saying, well, we want to interview more black candidates. So if I say I want to interview more black and then interview more black candidates, but just don't hire them, then how is that discrimination for giving you an opportunity to interview? So there's a lot going on with this lawsuit that I just don't understand. Now, there are some final allegations there about the Miami Dolphins. He said he was paid to lose games, which I think is going to be a league problem, that he was talking to a player under contract, which is another violation of league rules. But again, they don't really lead to any claims of discrimination, right? So what? The owner paid you to lose games. Is that discrimination? No, that's not a discrimination claim. That's a bad owner claim. And I'm just going to say it, last but not least with this lawsuit, he lays out a lot of what I like to call discriminatory impact. What do I mean by that? Well, he lays out the fact that there's only 3% of the coaches are black, but 70% of the players are black, and so forth, showing how even though the majority of players in the NFL happen to be black, it's just the extreme minority of players are in the front office. Disproportionate impact gets you into court. You can clearly say, like, hey, in this case with race, there's a problem, right? No black people are becoming coaches, but all of them are players. So, there's an issue here, and we're trying to fix the issue. So that's enough to get you in the court. But then you're going to have to still show that the reason why you have this impact, this difference between players and coaches is because of race, right? It's not enough to just point out that, this seems strange. You got to show the reason why is because of race. Now, let me give you an example. Still using the NFL. The NFL is 70% African-American or black, whichever term you want to use. But in the American population, African-Americans or black people only are 13% of the population. So even with the NFL, if you wanted to make this disproportionate impact argument, you could make it toward the players as well. Say, well, hold on. 70% of the players are black, but they're pulling those players from a pool which only 13% of the players are black. So technically, we should have it so only 13% of the players in the NFL happen to be black. Or we can even make that same argument for the NBA. 80% of the players in the NBA are black, but only 13% of the population is black, right? It doesn't follow. It doesn't track. So that's why showing this disproportionate impact or this difference in race when it comes to these jobs is just one level. It's enough to, it's enough to get you in, but it's not enough to win. And I think Brian Flores' lawsuit shows a lot of that desperate impact, right? They even have the picture of the coaches, and only one black coach. They have the picture of all the GMs. They have the picture of all the owners, no black owners, to try to make that point that this is all about race when it goes to management, but don't really make any allegations of why it's about race, of the fact that the NFL's actually intent was to do this. So that's why I think this lawsuit doesn't really have any legs. And last but not least, the tactics used to promote this lawsuit are, we've seen this before. Women's national teams, their lawsuit, right? Same tactics. Released the lawsuit on International Women's Day, right? Okay, boom. So here it is. International Women's Day, we got a lawsuit, right? Go and do all this media showing, hey, we're being discriminated against, right? Get everyone on your side. And then when it goes to court and you lose, then everybody's going to believe that the court got it wrong because no one really understood that there are two sides to the story. And with the women's U.S. national team, we see that they actually got paid more, right? It's obvious. And I think here, if Brian Flores loses, which I think his lawsuit is a loser, people are going to say, well, it's just the court system is the problem. And it's like, no, the court system is not the problem. He just didn't plead any facts that said, hey, listen, this is the reason why, the intent to discriminate is here. Without that, you don't have it. Just like a white guy saying that, hey, the NFL 70% black. I want to sue the NFL because it's disproportionate, right? How come 13% of the population is 70% of the millionaires in the NFL? I want one of those jobs. That's what a white guy could say. Again, that may get him into court, but that's not going to let him win. I see another public relations lawsuit that's going to get people clapping and cheering and rah, rah, rah. But I don't really see a winner. Let me know in the comments what you think. My name is Nathan Loy, and I'm out. Peace.